Hey, welcome. So today, we're not just going to list a bunch of Google Cloud services. Nope. We're going to run a little solution workshop. We're going to tackle some common, real-world problems, and more importantly, we're going to break down the why behind the best solutions. It's all about understanding the architectural patterns that actually get the job done. Let's get into it.
First up, we'll set the stage with the big data challenge pretty much everyone is facing these days. Then, we'll get our hands dirty with two case studies. One about turning messy logs into clean insights, and another on solving that tricky puzzle of cloud costs. And as we solve them, you'll see a really powerful pattern emerge that connects them both. We'll wrap up with some key principles you can start using right away.
In any modern cloud environment, data isn't the problem. In fact, it's kind of overwhelming, right? We've got logs, billing info, performance metrics. It's just this constant stream of information. But collecting data, that's the easy part. The real challenge, and where the real value is turning all of that noise into clear answers that actually help you make smart decisions.
And that really brings us to the core question, doesn't it? How do we build systems that are designed not just to hoard data, but to actually provide answers? To figure that out, we're going to walk through two super practical scenarios that you've probably run into before.
All right, our first case study. This is a classic. Imagine your team is running a bunch of virtual machines, and leadership comes to you and asks for a simple way to see how they're all performing, at a glance. Let's break down what they're really asking for. So let's pull out the keywords here. Easy to share, interactive, real-time, and this is a big one. It needs to handle information aggregated on a quarterly basis. That last part, that's a huge clue that's going to guide our whole architecture. So here's the most elegant solution, a really clean three-step pipeline. First, we get the logs out of Google's monitoring tools. Simple enough. Then, we send them over to BigQuery, which is our data analysis powerhouse. Finally, we spin up a dashboard in Looker Studio to make it all look pretty and easy to understand. It's direct, it's simple, and it's incredibly powerful.
Now, this is the most important part of the workshop. You might be looking at this and thinking, hold on, why not just export a CSV and throw it into Google Sheets? And that is a totally fair question. But that simple approach completely falls apart when you remember that one key requirement from the request. Let's see why. It really is all about using the right tool for the job. Remember that quarterly aggregation requirement? We could be talking about millions, maybe even billions of log entries over 3 months. Google Sheets would literally just collapse under that kind of weight. But BigQuery, it was built for this kind of heavy lifting and massive scale. And what about building a custom app? Well, Looker Studio gives you an interactive, shareable dashboard right out of the box, saving you weeks of development time. This architecture wins because it's both super efficient and ready to scale. Okay, let's take that same mindset and apply it to our second case. We're shifting gears now from operational data over to financial data. And this is a question every finance team asks eventually. What is this system actually costing us?
This is such a common scenario. You've got one big Google Cloud project, but inside you're running multiple different apps or services, System A, System B, and System C. The bill comes for the whole project, but you need to figure out how to slice up those costs and assign them to the specific systems that used them.
And here is the architect's solution. Now pay really close attention to that first step. The whole process doesn't start with exporting data, it starts with tagging the resources right at the source. We assign these specific labels first, then we export the detailed billing data to BigQuery. After that, it's a piece of cake to group and calculate costs based on those labels.
So again, we've got to ask why. It might seem easier to just name your VMs something like system-a-web-01, right? Why bother with the extra step of adding labels? Well, the answer comes down to two things: structure and reliability. Here's the difference in the real world. Labels are structured key-value pairs. They were designed for this exact purpose. You can have a key like system name and a value like billing engine. It's clean, it's consistent, and it's super easy to query. Trying to pull that same information out of a VM name is messy and honestly pretty fragile. The second someone breaks your naming convention, your whole report falls apart. Labels are the robust, purpose-built tool for the job, period. So we've just looked at two very different problems. One was about performance logs, the other was about financial costs. On the surface, they seem totally unrelated, but if we look closely at how we solve them, a really powerful architectural pattern starts to show up.
Just think back for a second to the workflow for Case 1 and Case 2. What was the one service that popped up in both solutions, acting as the core engine for all of our analysis?
Exactly. It's BigQuery. In both scenarios, we took a completely different type of raw data. Performance logs in one, billing data in the other, and we funneled it into BigQuery. It acts as this central hub where all the real analysis happens.
And you can just see it right here. It doesn't matter if the data is technical or financial, real-time or batched, BigQuery is this versatile, scalable data warehouse that can handle it all, letting you ask really complex questions across totally different parts of your business. This is that unifying principle. Centralize your diverse data streams and you'll unlock some incredibly powerful insight.
So what are the big takeaways from all this? How can we apply these patterns to architect better systems in our own work? Let's just boil it all down to the core principles.
First, always architect for the future, not just for today. Choose tools that can scale. Second, start with clean data. You can't do good analysis without good data hygiene, so tag your resources at the source. Third, centralize your data. Create a hub like BigQuery to bring everything together. And finally, separate your concerns. Let a processing powerhouse like BigQuery do the heavy-duty number crunching, and let a visualization tool like Looker Studio make it all easy to understand.
And that's really the final thought to leave you with. Your cloud environment is constantly generating signals about performance, cost, security, you name it. The real trick isn't just collecting that data, it's building an architecture that's actually designed to listen, to process those signals, and to turn all of that noise into clear, actionable answers.